All right. Welcome in. It is episode 4 of the Grayed Out Podcast. We are back with another issue topic for those political nomads, politically homeless out there. How are you guys doing? I am going to talk about tonight the thing that we are getting more than our daily dose of. We are getting inundated with. We are up to our necks with. We are in over our heads about, and we've probably most likely had enough of it because we get it every day, and that's news about the coronavirus and COVID-19. So here's where I'm at. Tonight we're going to talk about this, and I'm calling the episode Candid COVID Realities. Just kind of getting into the discussion about what it is about the coronavirus, the COVID infection that goes with it, that is creating such a divide in our country. Because if you can't see it, I don't know that you're watching. I really don't. Again, this is not to be outraged. This is not like last week's episode, which we're not going to talk about. But that's an issue where there's a little outrage deserved. What I'm not going to talk about tonight, just to make sure. So if you're looking for it, you're like, I'm not going to be talking about the federal government response yet. That's going to be another episode. We're going to deal with that. We're going to kind of circle back around and look at that. That's not this episode. This episode is specifically about what we are dealing with currently in the areas we live. Now, me specifically, I live in Northern California. So obviously California, one of the harder hit states. We've got we'll get into the infection rates and that kind of stuff in a minute, but we're now opening up. We're starting to see the beginnings and the middles of the phase 2s and the phased plans of planning phases and being phased over our planning and planning our phases very planningly and according to the planned phased plan. That's what we're doing in California. Now, there are other states that have opened up. There are some states that have opened up and everyone watched with horror, waiting to see what would happen, and it turns out that things seem to be okay. So we're looking at you, Florida. We're looking at you, Georgia. Things seem to be still balanced out, and so we're very hopeful. I'm hoping that when we see that gives people hope, because when you look at like the CDC's website, and I'll link that in the description. I'll link that in the podcast notes. When you look at their website, although I'm sure everyone knows right where to find what I'm talking about, there's a map that depicts the country, and the hardest hit states are a dark blue. And even though Washington State, up 2 states up from me, is where the coronavirus outbreak really kind of hit and started, they're actually a lighter color than California, Texas, Georgia, Florida. Of course, obviously, the Northeast is, if you want to call it a win, they're crushing it with coronavirus infections. They are leading the case between New York and New Jersey. They have, I want to say it's a little over a third of both the coronavirus infections in the country, as well as coronavirus deaths, unfortunately. So that's definitely not a win. I wasn't serious about that. That's a hard hit area. And so we know those are the areas in the country, but Florida and Georgia both being significant cases opened their states up. And fortunately, so far, we're seeing a pretty balanced and even. Nothing's increased, nothing's spiked, nothing's crazy. So that's good news. I hope that everyone sees that as good news, not just, it's luck or it's whatever, but that's good news. But the everyday effect of the coronavirus on our lives and what has been, here I am. I'm 48 years old, and I've lived through a bunch of different stuff in my life. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen it. Of course, I've never seen a pandemic, so why would I? But the lockdowns and the shelter in place and all of the things that have gone on, I've marveled at it. Now, I also work from home, so I was one of the very fortunate people, and I know that I count myself as very fortunate. I want you to hear that. The guy on the screen, very fortunate because I work from home. So I was able to continue working. My company continued to help our clients. We continued to kind of press forward and do our jobs. And so nothing really changed work-wise for me, although recently we had to furlough some employees, and that's very sad. That's the impact that this is having, but that should kind of get to some of the other points I want to talk about tonight. But here's the deal. Society is struggling, y'all. Struggling. And I'm going to say this right now. the like bifurcation, right? The diametric opposition, the bipolarization of our society. It seems like it's hit a peak high. I mean, it's up here when it comes to talking about this, and there's all these different like things. It's like it's just watch. And here's the deal. At least to me, when I'm looking at this, when I'm watching like some of the major issues we're discussing around the coronavirus, it's really frustrating to watch the like everyone's being turned into like angry, spiteful, divided, super judgy, opinionated people. And believe me, when I say opinionated, the irony is not lost on me when I say that. I get it. But here's some of the major things that I've kind of broken down to talk about tonight that I think these are just regular everyday things. Again, I'm not talking about the government impact or government response. Another episode, we'll get to that. But really just kind of the everyday issues that are breaking into three major categories that you kind of constantly see. At least the news is talking about. Mask or no mask, right? To mask or not to mask? To wear the mask or not to wear the mask? I have no idea why this is such a major issue. Now, I'm going to be very frank with you. I'm not a fan of the mask. Here's why. First, the glasses that sit on the forefront of my face. As soon as I put anything over my nose, all of the air from my mouth breathes up under and fogs the entire. I can't see. I become blind. So I'm not a fan of wearing the mask. Plus, I also have a very furry face, right? I have a very large beard. And so that almost, if I understand the masks correctly, that kind of negates some of the purpose of the mask. It doesn't like really help a lot. So all that said, I'm not a huge fan of wearing them. I don't find them, I've got a big head too, so they're not comfortable. But if a place requires a mask that I need to go into, I will find the mask that, my wife bought us a package of masks, and I'll find one and I'll put it on my face, as ridiculous as it looks, and I'll move my glasses so I can like kind of see, but I'll deal. And we've turned this mask issue. I'm serious. Like, this mask issue has literally become the calling card of whether or not you lean left or lean right. If you lean left, apparently you love the mask, you wear the mask. And if you lean right, you hate the mask because the mask represents some sort of like removal of your human dignity / rights. And if you wear the mask and you lean left, like you actually, and it just becomes this dividing point of both sides pointing at the other about the masks. And it's like, and it's like, so masks, issue 1, to open or not to open. That becomes issue 2. That's the big one. Like, are we opening the economies? Are we not opening the economies? Where are we opening the economy? Where are we opening up so people can go back out and engage with regular life? It's like regularly slightly altered life, but it's regular-ish life. So we'll call it regular-esque. How about that? Life-esque life, where you can go back out, go get your hairs cut by your barber, go out and have dinner at a restaurant without having to have the DoorDash kid run up to your door, knock on your door, and then you don't have the sauces or napkins or whatever you need in your meal. So there's those things. Just the regular day. Like, are we opening? Are we not opening? Who's opening? Obviously, right now, the hot button issue in opening, not opening is churches. And there are a lot of questions, and I've had these questions for a long time, and I've seen them floating around the internet, and it does bother me because it's never quite set right with me that, like, early on when all this kind of started, we had to run to Lowe's for something for the house. And that was deemed, like, Lowe's was deemed an essential business, which I'm happy for, right? Things break in the house. You need to fix things in the house. So you got to run to that. And this is a shameless, not a plug for Lowe's at all. This just happens to be the closest hardware store to my house. So run to the Lowe's, go in the Lowe's. It's packed with people. Like, it's just jam-packed with people. And it's like, this seems odd. And meanwhile, they're telling you can't go on a hike in the mountains. You can't go out on your kayak on the lake. You can't be on your boat. You can't go fishing. You can't play golf. It's like, So you can't go out to these really solitary small group places, but it's good that I go to a big box hardware store and buy things there. I mean, I don't see the difference. So these are some of the things I think a lot of people are asking. A lot of people are just regular in the middle kind of like questions going, wait, why is that like that? And as of late, there have been a couple like instances where a couple people I follow on Twitter have posted some things in their Facebook groups and other stuff, and they've had it removed, asking questions like, why is it okay for big stores to be open and mom and pop stores to be closed? Why is big business giving the essential green light, and a lot of small businesses are having to shut down and lay people off? Like, it seems a little odd, and it certainly, if you're just looking at it, it seems unfair. But these are legitimate questions, but to open or not to open, because like we want to open, get people, small business owners back to work, right? And then the other one is literally, and this is the one that like blows my mind the most. I'm really like, this gives me the most trouble trying to wrap my head around, is this idea of freedom versus fear. As though if you make a decision or the things you think literally put you into this camp of I believe in freedom or I believe in fear. And it's like, no, or the flip side of that would be, you believe in death and I believe in care. And it's like, it's just not this whole like, whoa, are you kidding me? And this is both sides pointing at each other, and this is what we end up with. And I mean, it is playing out in weird ways all over the place. So when we're dealing with masks, like, can we understand and can we get behind this idea that it is okay? Can we just agree, please, as a society, can we just agree that it is okay for a business, whether giant, conglomerate, corporate, chain, nationwide business, or local restaurant, boutique, whatever, local grocery store, national, whatever, it's okay for a business in their area to require masks to shop. It should be okay. And we should not have problems agreeing that a business doing business can feel that for the safety of their employees, their customers, it may be the best decision to make. And that is okay. If you don't want to wear the mask, awesome. That's your choice too. You just don't need to shop there. Honestly, right now, because of how I feel about the mask, I love going to Trader Joe's, but Trader Joe's is requiring masks. So right now I'm not going to Trader Joe's. Right. And I keep just like plugging some of the stores, and I'm not getting paid for that. I just where we go to shop around here. So I go to there's a store we don't get to go to the store. They require masks. I don't want to wear the mask, so I don't go to the store. That's just the way it works. You can't be a total knobhead, go into the store and demand that your freedoms are being encroached upon because they're saying you got to wear a mask. That just makes you a whiner. If you need something from the store, go in the store, wear the mask, get out. Now, I think a lot of people, if you haven't seen it, there's a video going around of a dude who went into Costco last week, or maybe it was last week, and they asked him to put on a mask, and the Costco worker literally snatched the dude's cart and walked away. I don't think either of them handled it necessarily perfectly, but Costco, in that particular Costco, had put out at the door, if you're going to come in, we're requiring masks for you to shop, so you need to put on a mask. This guy, he said, this is so funny to me because I just don't, people get in this thing in their head that when they get a certain a certain platform, I guess that is leverage for them in society to negotiate with people. This dude said literally, I'm going to put you on my 3,000 follower Instagram account. And I just kind of shook my head and sighed and went, that's where we've come to, that we really believe that the people following us across the interwebs are somehow gonna change society for us, all 3,000 of them. That's just where my mind went immediately. Are you kidding me? All three. I mean, I'm not one to talk. I don't have a crazy, like, large social media following yet. I mean, maybe hopefully if people, like what they're hearing and they spread the word, then great. Maybe someday. But I promise you, if I ever got a large social media following, I'm not going to try and use it to better my position in, not following a store's rules. I just, that just makes you a knobhead. I think knobhead is a absolutely great phrase for that. That just makes you a whiny knobhead if you just don't want to follow the rules and you want to make some excuses. I've seen videos online of people saying, well, I have a condition that prevents me from wearing a mask, and according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, you have to make accommodations for me, and you let me shop in your store without a mask. And arguing with the manager at the door, and he's offering, well, no, we can have someone. You have a list. You can text us your list. You can go ahead and we'll waive the fee for our electronic card if you want. We'll make any accommodation, but we can't let you in the store. And this woman, it was a woman, and she just wouldn't let go because she didn't want to wear the mask. It's like, listen, none of that works that way. And one of the greatest ways to explain this was back in the day. Lots of stores used to have a sign that literally said, no shirt, no shoes, no service, because the business has the right to determine that, like, how they want their customers to be in the store for whether safety reasons, hygiene reasons, whatever it is, they can determine that that's within their right and the right of refusal to service. And here's what I find even more amazing. On the conservative side of the issue, the same people, mind you, the same people, same ones, same people, who say that it should not be okay, right? It should be okay for the Christian baker to not bake wedding cakes for gay couples, lesbian couples. That should be totally okay. Are the same ones saying the business shouldn't tell me I have to wear a mask to come in their store. It's like, bro, you can't have it both ways. You can't be on both sides of that saying, there's like that. You can't have your cake and eat it too on that one. I hate to tell you, you can't scream and cry and whine about people being forced, and they should have a right to do their business their way. And then when that comes to land on your nose, get all whiny crybaby about it. Nope, you don't get to do that. But the same goes in reverse. And like, there should not be this rush to say every business should do it and has to do it, needs to do it. We should make everyone require masks. Otherwise we will boycott their business or whatever. Like, give the business owners the opportunity to make decisions they feel are best for their businesses. Give people the opportunity to make wise decisions and let's see what happens. Now, I do realize that early on we got a good dose of some, I think the Florida videos, the spring break videos, and the college kids are like, oh, just take the virus, no big deal. I get it. We realize that maybe there's a sadness and we lose hope in the America, I guess. I don't know. But I think we've got to give people these opportunities. And this leads into the next part is this cross-section of how we view opening the economy. Because here's where it gets so frustrating. Like the mask thing is not a sign, and neither is how people feel about getting our economy rolling, people back to work, getting out of our houses and engaging in life-esque, right? That's what we want to do. We want to engage in life. And the reality is, okay, let's make sure. It can be a reason. Maybe that's better as an ask. Can it be reasonable, a reasonable understanding to think that on one hand it's incredibly sad, and it is incredibly sad, that over 98,000 people have died. Over 98,000 people have died from this virus or complications from this virus, and that's sad. And because it's an unknown, I get that makes it even more tragic. We're like, this is like, it kind of hit us out of nowhere. It came, it landed on our faces. We've had to deal with this, and we've lost over 98,000 fellow Americans. And that's rough. That's rough to think about. But can we also understand and be reasonable in saying, well, man, it could have been so much worse? Because frankly, that literally is 2/100ths of 1% of our entire population. on a grand scale, 2/100ths of a, and even in saying that, I know I'm risking like being barked at and ridiculed depending on who hears this. Again, I try not to think too highly of this is going to go everywhere, but at the same time, I realize I could offend like one of the 8 people that actually listen. I get that, but it doesn't mean when you say it could have been worse, it's only 2/100ths of a percent of our entire population. It doesn't mean that you don't care that people died. It doesn't mean that you don't realize the dire impact of this disease, but at the same time, we can also realize the dire impact of financial hardships on families and people we know and love that need to get back to work, that are unable to pay bills and unable to pay their rent and need to get back to work to support their families, need to get their small businesses up and running or they risk losing it. Because let's be frank, the government response in that area of the loans, that's great that they pass those relief packages, but they're not getting that out fast enough, and people need to get back to work. That's the solution I think that we should be looking at as we really realize like some of these things in our life, like here in California. Let's just talk about this for a minute, just to be really real and tell you where I'm at. In California, we have 94,558 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in California. In my county, it's like it's like ridiculous. We've had 149, 150 something cases, and roughly, I think 13, maybe 13 deaths. I think we just went over double digits. But that's over the course of the whole thing, right? That's what we've had in this county. And the Northern California area, especially, as you get, north of like the Bay Area, the San Francisco Bay Area, you move north and especially northeast in California, it just gets less and less and less and less and less and less and less. Right? It becomes more and more sparse. Our major hotspot is the Los Angeles region. Southern California region is where they're suffering from this the most. And in California, like we are opening up at a snail's pace and people are arguing about it all the time. But when you look at it just from just a mathematical perspective, you go 94,558 people are confirmed infected with coronavirus. And I realize there's like asymptomatic, but even the CDC has released a statement saying, right, asymptomatic people don't transmit it as easily, where they're finding out. So this is all these things are good news. Like that's the thing is, I'm not trying to dispel the reality of the virus. I'm not trying to say one is right, one is wrong. I'm just saying in the middle, there's just information. In California, the information is that 94,558 infections, that's 1/5. Basically, it's 1/5 of 1%. 1/5 of 1% of the entire population of California has been infected with the virus that is confirmed. In California, we have noted on our local news channels, on our statewide news, like we have more testing available than people that are feel the need, want to take the tests. We have drive-through testing sites that are just going unused, right? We had a hospital ship in Southern California that was largely untouched. Like we have seen the worst of it, and I think this is where people are starting to ask questions and get frustrated because the chant at the front, if I'm not mistaken, was flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. And we were all on board. I don't think anyone, some people question it, right? I get it. Yes, some people question it. They're like, oh, flatten the curve. And we did. And we did. We flattened the curve significantly. And I understand the real concern may be, well, if we start opening up, then the curve might come back. Maybe. We can always respond again. We can. But in some of the talk you hear in this state is that we're going to wait it out. We're going to wait till the virus is gone. I'm like, that's a virus, man. It's not going to be gone. Just like the flu virus is never gone, right? Like, and what about Bob? You think he's gone? He's never gone. He's like, it's always there. There's no way to get rid of it. There's no cure. You can't come up with a cure. We can have a flu, like the flu, we can have a vaccine. That's what we can get. That's the best we can hope to get. Now, whether you want to take the vaccine or not, okay, there's a choice there. Now, I think everyone's seen the post floating around that, hey, the flu has a vaccine and still kills upwards of 40 to 60,000 people a year with a vaccine. I think that just, we've got to note that's still out there. And here we are fighting a disease that has no vaccine, no known prophylaxis, no known treatments, and we're doing you hate to say pretty well when you consider the death, but in light of those odds, we're doing pretty well. I'm just going to say it. In light of the odds, we're doing pretty well. And we have to hold on to that because these are, this is good news. And I realize if you haven't lost anybody, and I haven't lost anybody due to the coronavirus. I lost my uncle during the coronavirus, but he died of a heart attack. And we know he died of a heart attack. He did not die of heart attack induced by coronavirus. He died of a heart attack because, he was overweight and his heart just couldn't take it anymore. So I lost my uncle that way during all this. And I don't think they marked his death certificate as coronavirus. I don't think he had it. So, all that said, when you look at all this, and I realize if you haven't lost it, but you don't realize the impact of it, I understand it's hard. If you're someone who has lost someone and you're mourning and you're grieving, especially if you lost a person you weren't able to see them. Those things are hard. But there's a lot of good news when we look at all the things going on around us. And this leads me to the final point. This is it doesn't make you a person that values a profit over life if you think that the financial hardship and the dire impact of that is something we need to navigate and move forward. It doesn't make you someone who values, big corporate money I just think it's we want to get out and get back to life. People are not meant to live like this. And we're seeing the other impacts come around. We're seeing the rise of, we've seen it through the whole freaking pandemic, being locked down. Rise of depression, rise of calls about, domestic violence, rise in sales of alcohol. People's addictions are flaring up because they're trying to deal and cope with being stuck. Well, I can tell you my own story, and maybe for another time, about how during the first 3 weeks, I was eating everything you put in front of me, and I just started ballooning up, boom, 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 and I realized, man, I got to change some things. So, and not to mention with the death of my uncle, spun me out. So, at the same breath, there are going to be people that are more timid, that want to approach it more cautiously, right? So on the one hand, people that want to get out and they want to experience freedom, right? They're not wrong. They're not crazy, hardened, don't care about people, value profit over life. They're not death mongering. They're not inconsiderate. It's not that they don't care that people have died, but that there's got to be forward motion in what we're doing. And at the same time, people that are approaching it more timidly are not scared sheep. You don't know. People who desire, they want to wear a mask, and they really wish other people would wear a mask. And maybe they're saying that. The object is we shouldn't shame one another for the decisions that are being made. If you want to go out and drive in your car by yourself with no one around because you feel like it, I think the science says it doesn't actually make you safer, but if it's just more convenient to leave the mask on while you're riding in your car to and from, and that's fine, and you just won't forget it that way, then great, whatever. What I'm saying though is those people are not timid sheep. You don't know what their situation is. You don't know. There's no way to know that they may have someone that's high risk at home. They themselves may have some form of risk that you are not aware of. And they may need to go out for something. So just let them be. Just because they're doing that doesn't make them socialist rubes. Can we just not equate the idea that somehow putting on a mask is taking away your civil liberties, and that wearing a mask is somehow freely giving them up? You just want to exist in communist Russia, so the old Soviet bloc. I don't know, or communist. It doesn't mean that. There are so many different factors to consider when you're looking at other people. If people would just let themselves step back for 2 seconds and realize that we can't let what's on the news and what our political team is shouting for the minute decide how we're going to treat other human beings. So I say to both sides, listen, if you want to wear a mask, great. If you don't want to wear a mask, fine. Those are your decisions to make. I think we need to be adults. If you don't feel good, stay home. Right? If you're running a fever, if you then go get tested, go get checked, go see your doctor. Right? But if you want to wear a mask, right, then fine, wear your mask. Wear it diligently, wear it proudly. But both sides, stop shaming one another for not doing what you think is right. Stop. It's not helping anybody. It's not helping anyone when you see someone walking in the store without a mask. I've seen a video where they like mobbed this woman and ran her out of the store. They were so mad. Mocking reporters. Like, I get it. It looks funny when there's like no one around. And the CDC guidelines specifically say like where social distancing can't really be maintained, then maybe we recommend masks. And let's just be clear real quick. That's not a law. The CDC recommendation is not a legal, ordinance. It's not something that's enforceable by the. Now, if the city comes up with an ordinance or whatever comes up with an ordinance, then fine, you guys can roll the dice on that. But here's the deal: if we live in a truly free society, we're literally going to talk like true freedom, that people need to be free to make some choices. Wearing masks, not wearing masks. Right? And if businesses want to set the rules to say you got to wear a mask, then you want to go to the business, you got to wear the mask. But we need to lay the pitchforks and torches down for like 10 seconds and back up off this and realize that there's been a cost of human life associated with this disease, right? Cost of human life to the tune of 98,000+ lives. Now, could it have been worse? Absolutely. But that's not what you go parading around when you're dealing with people that may have suffered loss. That's just not cool. That doesn't give them the human dignity that they deserve. It doesn't really like address their loss. And it may not even be someone they lost from the disease. It may be someone they lost during this disease that they still couldn't go see. Like, there's so much wrapped up in that. You have no idea. And at the same time, like, if we just step back for that 2 seconds and start evaluating the data and realize that no one, please can we understand, no one wants to just haphazardly rush out, open everything up, licking frogs and drinking from rusty, whatever, I don't know, like, we'll give you the disease, whatever it is. No one wants to rush out haphazardly everything, every step of the way, everyone from top to bottom. That is the top, right? And the White House, everyone has said, we want to get moving, but we want to do so safely, responsibly. Now, where the contention has been, where people view that people have been dragging their feet and doing so in ways that may not benefit, and there again, those are where the contention points are, but there are reasons for that. And there are places, yes, where there may be seeming government overreach. But I think that's going to balance out, people. Let's be real. We have a system that lets us balance it out. And I'll tell you what, states change I wouldn't say all the time, but states change. The political demographic of a state changes. And I think one of the things that this whole experience has exposed, and this is going to be in another episode, is this has really exposed the reason, right? The angles, the viewpoints from either right or left side and how they view the way government should operate. And that's a super important thing to consider. But in this, when we're just dealing with the day-to-day issues and episodes that we've got to deal with as everyday American citizens, kind of watching this unfold for you and I, what we need to do is first you just need to chill for a second. Just relax. And realize that the majority of people, not what you see on the news, not what you may read about, not the opinions of your hardcore, right, fringy, right or left opinion writers, not the people that are out there on their websites and writing for left-leaning or right-leaning organizations, not those opinions, not the people you shut the echo chamber off for 2 seconds and realize the majority of people are out here in the middle, right? And they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to be responsible, not just rush off and do crazy things, not caring about other people. Like the majority of us are out here in the middle trying to do what is right. So that's where we are. And I think we need to let that happen. We need to realize that more people are capable of adulting than we think. And we need to let people adult. So for you and I think that's the first step. We need to step back and realize that there are motivating reasons for either side, and that neither side is necessarily wholeheartedly wrong and or evil and or weak and or more right than the other. There's a balance to this, and the balance is there to be had if you're really willing to look at it. Now, again, if you've got a side and you pick a side and you're going to say it's all, they're trying to trick us into socialism. They're trying to trick us into being a socialist, communist country. I'm like, that's just probably not going to fly. Dang it, Bernie didn't win the Democratic nomination. He's out and about, proud of it, socialist. So, clearly people are not about that. So I don't think that's the case. I'm just going to say I don't think that's the case. I don't think they're trying to force us into socialism. Now, again, I think there's definite ways that they're approached, like each side, because of their view on how things need to be governed, are approaching it. But again, we have a system that we can make changes and we can move forward with. And let's not forget that. And let's not forget, man, the table of this, human dignity and human life is more, I get it. It can be frustrating. We're walking through a situation that none of us, unless you were alive in 1918, have ever dealt with. Right? And we could point to, SARS and H1N1 and all that, but none of that has been like this. I was around for all of those. None of those are like this. This is nutty. This is way different, and everyone's got to admit that. So that's all different. This is the biggest, weirdest, oddest thing we've ever seen in my lifetime. And probably in my mom's lifetime. So it's one of those things where we've got to kind of walk through and we've got to realize that we're all, it's so cliche, we're all in this together. Yes and no. But we are, as a society, we're all kind of walking through this, trying to find our way. And majority of people, again, I'm going to get close to the mic. I hate this, but I'm going to say it one more time for you. The majority of people are trying to do the right thing. So there you go. That's me and the mic saying they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to do what they think is right. And I realize that part of the political issues, honestly, it boiled down to this for me. Both sides don't want to be wrong. That is what it boils down to. If I'm really honest, it boils down to neither side wants to be wrong. Neither side wants to say they were wrong about anything they just want they want to be right because that's what politicians do. They want to be right, and they're going to hold on to that for as long as they can until everyone screams at them like all of us are you were wrong. We all know you're wrong now. We're going to move on without you. So we can get there are so many other issues, but they open not to open the churches and all the things are going on. But at the bottom line, can we just start to work our way toward one another, right? That next level of issues where they're trying to resolve organizational things, bigger things, but as far as how we view people's ideas and how we treat one another, can we just bring some dignity back into that conversation? Can we just admit that maybe our position's not the best position and let that lead to treating people to with respect, with dignity, letting them know that there's a seat at the table for their ideas, and it doesn't make them evil or it doesn't make them soft. It doesn't make them weak. It doesn't make them profit-driven. It doesn't make them careless or heartless. It doesn't make people those things. And when we assign those things to people, we are demeaning them in ways just to make our idea and platform seem most correct. So let's drop it every week. Let's be better, all right? Political nomads, the politically homeless, let's be better. Let's lead the way in this. Let's just be better people toward one another every week. So here's the thing. If you like what you heard, leave some comments, like the video. Please hit that like button. That just helps me get the videos out. They kind of move up in the whole YouTube thing. Hit the subscribe button. If you don't want to hit the subscribe button, subscribe anyways. You can ignore the videos when they come out. You don't have to get the notifications, but if you want notifications, hit the little bell thing. If you want all that, subscribe, hit the bell, share with a friend, let them know the Grayed Out Podcast is out there. Kind of just saying in the middle things. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that resonate with you. Maybe just make you think for 2 seconds. So there again, here we are, Grayed Out Podcast. Jay the Gray on Twitter, Grayed Out Podcast page on Facebook, on WordPress at loadsofrubbish.com. That'll all be linked in all the places.